video, we are going to be talking about previous price action and why it's so important to my strategy. You know, nobody talks about this on YouTube, understanding previous price action, how price got there, and why is that so important for every single trade. Because some trades I don't take because of how previous price action was and how it got to a certain level, and it actually helps me to not get faked out. So let's go over some examples and my thought process behind the entire thing. Now, taking a look at QQQ, we notice a few things. The main level we're going to be looking at is this 482. Forget everything else, we're looking at this 482. Now, this example not only helped us to not get faked out, but it also helped us to time the entry right. Even without time and sales, we have to understand how previous price action is at a certain level and understanding price action to the basics, because a lot of you guys fundamentally have candlesticks and price action totally wrong, which is fine, but this is a video for you guys. Now, previous price action, we're looking at this 482 to the upside. What do we notice? We come up, right? We went red to green, we come up. We're starting to slow down right at this 481.40. We had a pullback, then a nice move back up. The reason why you would not take 482 like this, right, if it was just these two candles there, is because we're starting to become extended, right? We had this nice move up right here, then we pulled back. We didn't pull back one or two candles, we pulled back, we tried to come up, came right back down. That's why it's super important to look at your charts and understand how price is moving. We understood that we had this nice move up. Buyers are really coming in off the open, and then we had a little pullback. Usually it's one or two candles. Then we try to continue. Guess what happens? We went red to green, and then we made almost a new high. Then we make a new high right here, and then we failed that, showing that it is starting to slow down in that area. Then we start to slowly come down. We're still bouncing at this area. We still have this trend going up, right? We're still coming up. Sellers aren't fully in control yet, but we understand that these buyers are starting to slow down there. Then out of nowhere, we get this push of momentum, breaking that high day, then another push like that. It would be different if price was right here and this is what we were taking a breakout of, but it wasn't. What we were taking a breakout of was at 482. So understanding how that previous price action was, it's starting to get a little slow here. Then out of nowhere, we had this nice push. I like to use this bench press analogy. You're at 10 reps, right? Then you start to slow down, you start to take a break, but you're still mid-set. So you're not fully energized, right? It's not a little pullback and then a continuation like that. We are on our last one or two reps. We're about to hit failure. Next thing you know, we had this one rep, and you're about to go one more, and we go again, right? After that, you need a break. And because of this, right, this was showing that you were struggling. Because of this, then you had that last two pops. We need to see a pullback. This is exactly what we see. You can't get on this candle right here. This thing could easily have broke 482, but this has a way less of a win rate, way less of a probability to continue above that 489, just because we've seen this over and over again. My win rate would be way lower if I take a trade on that candle. So you have to wait for the pullback. You wait for the pullback, nice pullback, then we're waiting for it to break, right? If this candle broke 482, that's when we would be in. But guess what? We start to come up to that 482, then we reject, showing that there is a level at that 482, nice reaction, and we start to come down. So now we have to wait. We come back down. This is just irrelevant price action. As long as we're able to hold above this area right here, that shows that buyers are still there. Why? Because this was the previous high that we were breaking out of that. Now we're just retesting that area. As long as we're able to hold this, it's fine. As well as it being the first 30 minutes of the day. Why? Because that's when there's a lot of momentum. That's when there's a lot of volatility. So if this was at 1 o'clock, this slowness would have continued. It's very rare for it to be this low at around 12, 11, 1 o'clock, and it out of nowhere getting that momentum, unless there's news or something like that, getting that momentum to break out at 482 very nicely. Now, if it's in the first 30 minutes to an hour, which is exactly what I trade, it can be this slow. And then out of nowhere, it will move like this. And that's exactly what happened. But we reacted, again, retested this 482. We're waiting for it to break that 482. Now, what gave us extra confirmation and wait for it to break was because the high of this candle was exactly 482. So it could have easily touched it and rejected, and it did right here, it did right here. Time of sales will also help with that. But based off the previous price action, we were not able to get in that. We waited for the pullback, then in continuation, never broke 482, retested it again, very nice reactions, held above here. So now that it's holding above there, we still are looking for calls. Next thing you know, we have this green candle. It reacted at the 482, then closed under that. You could anticipate that 482 break right on that candle, but what usually happens is out of nowhere, this candle will go up and then like slowly like close under that 482, showing like we're ready to click the button, but we need the extra confirmation to close above that 482 or the time of sales to hold that 482. And for this example, it did not hold 482, which is why it closed right under it. Then this went red to green. As soon as this went red to green, I'm in. The probability is on your side. We finally have an edge. Our win rate on this setup, 90%. So now that we're able to get in on this trade, once it went red to green, because we want to see that little pullback, we want to see a reaction, because sellers could have easily brought this down and then buyers swept it right back up, showing that there's more buyers here than there was previously. So if we weren't able to break out previously because there was not enough buyers, and then this is showing that there's a lot more buyers here than sellers, red to green, that means that there's more buyers here, which will more likely bring us above that 482. Red to green, time of sales is probably going crazy. We get in. And as you guys can see, we came up, closed above that, retested 482, and then absolutely ran almost a full dollar, which would have been 25% on the contracts in 3 minutes. Stop loss under this candle at most, so literally at the 80s, you would have lost about 8%, which is a 1 to 3 risk to reward in 3 minutes. That's understanding previous price action. You don't even need time of sales for that. What you need is understanding previous price action. Don't get in there. That just helps you not to get faked out. Again, helps you not to get faked out because we have to wait for that 482 and we had to see enough momentum. Came up. Again, same thing here. Once we get above that, close above. Once we close it below, then we went red to green, showing that there's more buyers there than there was previously. Because you can't expect something to break if there's less buyers there for this case than there was previously. If we couldn't break with 100 buyers and then there's 80 buyers here, how do you expect that to break? There is no probability on your side. There's no edge on your side if you're getting in a trade and there's less buyers there. And that would be hinted towards the time and sales. You'll be able to see that. But you can see this previous price action. This whole thing. So here's another trade that I took on Nvidia. Previous price action, right? Intraday. Now, we were looking at this 122 to the upside. If you guys know anything about Nvidia previously, it has been a little bit weird. So you have to be extra cautious of the price action here on Nvidia. Now, Nvidia opened strong a little bit, came back down, indecisive, right? We have no idea where it wants to go. Next thing you know, we went red, right? So we're like, okay, sellers are starting to come in. We're understanding previous price action. We're seeing it. Next thing you know, buyers are sweeping these sellers here, coming right back up, red to green, showing that there is buyers starting to come in that area. Now, it means nothing in the first 2 minutes if it can't hold itself up in the next couple of minutes after, because this thing could easily come back down because it's exactly how the open works, and this is why I advise it. This is why, in my opinion, it's not the safest thing to trade in the first couple of minutes. Next thing you know, we clear high day. We're starting to come in strong. We see the body of the candle starting to become a little bit bigger, but we still have these wicks right there. We're still starting to slow down there. and we started struggling, but we were able to manage to come back up. Next thing you know, we went red to green again. So this is telling us leading up to this 122 area, we're starting to struggle a little bit, right? So even if we do get to this 122, I am not going to take it. We have to wait for a reaction. This is a clear example of me waiting for a reaction. Now, in this example, if let's say this area right here was our level, I would probably take it because we went red to green again. Time of sales is probably going super crazy. I would be able to play that for a quick scalp. But again, we were playing this 122 to the upside. So we wait for it to react there, because after this candle, especially after that candle, I'm waiting, right? I have to wait for a pullback and then a continuation. I want to wait for that pullback, then a continuation, because it's just starting to slow down here. You can't expect it to go from this and then out of nowhere just keep going crazy. The probability of that happening is low. It does happen sometimes, but you can't base an exception and make that part of your plan because you saw it happen once or twice. And this is how we're able to just have our edge. This is how we're able to have that 90% win rate, because we don't let an exception, let's say this just kept going, change our perspective and change our plan. No, we keep it the same, no FOMO, no emotions. So we're going to have to wait for a reaction. Not only did this allow a reaction here right at that 122, thank goodness that we were not able to break above that on that move, because we were not be able to take it. But since it reacted at 122, that made 122 setup even nicer because it's reacting there. If it's reacting there, then there's got to be something there that stopped it from continuing. So let's say we have 100 buyers here and we weren't able to continue. Then we had this nice seller move. Then we had this nice pullback here on Nvidia. That shows us that there was buyers coming up, then the sellers easily took it right back down. So in order for us to break this, we need 110 buyers versus us having only 100 buyers there. Again, that's why time of sales is super important with that. But this is previous price action. Previous price action showed that the buyers are starting to slow down there. We are starting to come up with that move. We had the little pullback here. Buyers starting to come in at this low right there, which is around that previous high day, as you guys can see. So we're starting to hold up. We come up a little bit, back down. Now, just taking a look at this, usually you would see a move down, right? If this candle was all the way full, like this, that would be weak. And that's exactly what it showed when that wick was full. But then we came back up, showing that there's still buyers in that area. And again, this could have went either way. Then out of nowhere, buyers started to come in, starting to aggressively come in. Time and sales is going crazy here. And this is an exact trade that I took. So I saw with my own eyes how the time and sales is going. Came up right above that 122. See that high right there? Once we broke out of that high into that 122, that's when I got in because the momentum was going crazy. Sellers were not able to take control, was not able to bring that down fully because buyers absolutely swept it. Next thing you know, we're above that 122. That's when we got in. Red to green, red to green. So now this is where we're starting to slow down a little bit because look at all these wicks. Sellers tried, brought it right back up. Sellers tried, we brought it right back up. So then once we got to that 123, I got fully out because I do not want to mess with this. Then buyers started coming in nicely, which usually doesn't continue because we were already starting to see signs of sellers, and then buyers pretending like they're strong for these 1 to 2 candles. And then this is why it did this, and this is why it consolidated like that, because it was already out of breath and then it decided to go for 2 more, and then it's just gonna have to just hold up in that area for a certain amount of time because it already gave up all its energy. Buyers need to recoup. Next thing you know, that's when it will continue if it's able to hold up against the sellers. And it's the same exact thing with, let's say, SPY, right? If we're doing a retest, what is price action telling us? Very important when we're about to take a trade. We came down, buyers started to hold up in that area. Then buyers started to come back up. We start to reject this area, which was rejected in the opening. So it doesn't know where it wants to go. Next thing you know, we went green, then to red, and then we're starting to hold up at that low area right there. If this was going to pick a direction, this would have came up a little bit, then continued. But guess what? We started coming up slow and steady. Then we had this candle. So it literally makes no sense. So what a lot of people do will force trades. That's exactly what you don't want to do. You want to be hands off. On price action like this, you want to be hands off because this has no idea where it wants to go. And your position could go either way. Do not risk it. Next thing you know, right, in my head, I'm like, all right, if I'm ever going to consider a trade on this, which I haven't taken a trade on SPY in forever because of the price action, but I would just literally draw this mentally and just wait for it to actually pick a direction out of that area because it's just straight consolidation. Price action is terrible. But then it finally picked the direction once it closed under that low. Nice pullback. This is how price action should actually work. Once price action is showing me that, hey, you know, it's actually starting to get good. Price action is actually starting to respect price action and not doing all that weird stuff like this where it comes up when it's not supposed to. Once it starts to show me that it respects itself, that's when we're like, okay, we could look for a trade. We had this nice move to the downside. We're finally picking direction, green to red. We're starting to slow down in this area, which is how it usually is. We're starting to hold up in this area. Guess what? We're right at that 570 area. Intraday level. We had this nice move. We're starting to hold up at that 570. We wait for that bounce. We started to bounce off a little bit. We're starting to see sellers starting to come in a little bit, and then buyers brought it back up. Then we went red to green. We had a nice move right back down. Green to red. Sellers starting to take control. Next thing you know, this candle is going crazy all the way back down. Guess what happened previously at that level? This is where we started to react. We had that pullback, then a continuation. We're reacting at the same exact area. Tape was going crazy. We come down. Once we break out of this 570, you could either A, get in at that 570 break, B, get in, anticipate this once we reach under probably this low of that candle right there, or C, wait for the low of this, which is right there. Now, this is all dependent on the time of sales. Time of sales could have went crazy right there, which would allow you to anticipate. Maybe you wait for the 570 break because time of sales is showing that it's slowing, and then that 570 break, once it broke, momentum was there. Or you might have to wait until after because it was going back and forth in that area, and then once it broke out, it looked nice. Then that's when you would have got in the 80s. But this is not a time of sales lesson showing possible entries. Then we see this little wick right there on SPY showing that there is, you know, a lot of sellers in that area, but we could potentially be slowing down a little bit. Next thing you know, the body of this candle is getting a little bit smaller, which with a bigger wick, which would allow me to think about selling, right? I'm probably starting to sell off on this candle right here, probably at least half out. Next thing you know, we break this 589. Next thing you know, we break this 569, and I love selling on the whole number breaks, especially after a move down like this. We came from this 571.16 all the way down to that 569. I'm selling a lot more on that 569 break, and price action was telling me that it is starting to slow down, which is why I'm considering definitely selling. Probably I'm already 80% out once that 569 breaks, and then once it closes, you can see there's a wick there, there's a wick there. We're starting to slow down the area. We came up red to green. Once we start to come up again, because we're supposed to come down, we're only supposed to have a little pullback, we're supposed to come down even further. Guess what happens when we don't come down? We open up. Once we break out of this area, maybe you give it room up to this top of the candle right there, but that's where my runners are getting out. Because on that previous price action, it's showing me that it is starting to slow down in that area. We are starting to slow down. Then we had this nice move. So we are starting to slow down a little bit, especially after this $2-3 move to the downside on SPY, allowing me to know to sell most out at that 569, maybe even a little bit before. So that is understanding previous price action. It probably was a lot to a lot of people, but This is exactly what's going on in my head when I'm trading. How is previous price action happening, right? All you guys see is me click a button for the buy and then the sell, right? All you guys see is that, but you guys don't see inside my mind what's going on, previous price action, time of sales. Why is it doing this with this? Is this doing that? Okay, this candle is looking like this. Great entry, great sell. All you guys see is me clicking my button, but this is exactly what's going on in my head. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you guys want another video like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.